So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Susan Piver. She is a meditation instructor in the Shambhala Buddhist lineage and a New York Times bestselling author of 6 books, including the award-winning book, How Not to Be Afraid of Your Own Life, and The Wisdom of a Broken Heart. She's practiced meditation for over 15 years and teaches around the world. Thank you, Susan.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. The theme of our talk, my talk, tonight is Start Here Now, how to create a sustainable meditation practice. And I want to say a special welcome to people who are here for the first time and who may be meditating for the first time. So it's no small thing to show up in a strange place like this, which I happen to love, and look at your own mind. So thank you very much for doing that. So I want to just, I have some things I want to say, and then we can have a conversation, because everybody has their own difficulties in making a meditation practice work, including myself. And so I just, maybe we'll start by saying I don't have any secret tricks. I'm so sorry to say. But just to acknowledge at the outset that without even knowing you, I feel quite certain that you are doing the best you can. And everybody has difficulties sustaining their practice. And the very best practice that you can do immediately is the practice of letting yourself off the hook. So please begin practicing that immediately. But let me just ask you, why do you practice meditation, or why do you want to practice meditation? To stay sane. It's excellent for those purposes. Mm-hmm. That's great. So it's a way to take a break from the incessant blah, 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 blah. Absolutely. Uh-huh. Mine's kind of greedy. I just feel happier. That's awesome. He feels happier all the time when he's in a good meditation practice. That's a great reason. Mm-hmm. A great way to connect with yourself. And give yourself some love. 100%. Beautiful. Yes, and then yes. To get to know your demons, and then I didn't hear the rest. Yes. Have you ever heard of a book called Feeding Your Demons? It's a really good book. And that's a great reason. Last one. To have a glimpse of being totally present. Fantastic. These are all excellent reasons. I'm sure everybody can relate. And I would like to posit, however, that while these are all excellent reasons, they may not be the reason to practice. Because the reason to practice, I've discovered, is actually to discover something. Rather than to change yourself in any way, particularly, it is to discover something that you don't know right now about who you are. And the path of discovery can only take root when we relax. But when we sit down to practice with the idea that this is what it is, and this is what I want it to do, and I want it to do all sorts of things, including everything everybody just said, and this is what I need from my practice, the magic of the practice kind of dissipates. Because really it is a way to meet yourself. And if you think you already know what that is, then, you're tapping yourself on the shoulder and you think you're talking to yourself, but you're really talking to some kind of a wall. I have that feeling often, by the way. So if I ask you right now, without moving or doing anything, I'm sure everybody can do this. I'm going to ask us all to do this together. To please put your attention right now on your left index finger. You don't have to look at it, just put your attention on it. And now put your attention on your right ear. And now put it on the person in front of you or the floor if you're sitting in the front row. And now put it on my voice. And now put it above my head. And now put it back on your left index finger. So everybody could do that, right? Did anybody? So something moves between those points, right? That something is your attention. And that something is the alpha and omega of the practice. That is what we are working with. So we may come to the practice thinking, I want to be more patient, speaking for myself. I want to feel more loving. And all of that is great, and all of that will happen because this is one hell of a magic practice. But really, it's about working with that. So when we start to get too far from that, it gets very confusing. That is the secret sauce. And he or she who can place that where he or she would like it to go and hold it there is master or mistress of his or her domain in every way. So in our world, it's extremely difficult to do that. And we are so accustomed to that bouncing all the time for good reason. You, especially people who live in New York City, you just walk down the street and that is going boing, 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 a million times, not even counting all the things that are going on in your mind. And then to think, well, I need to actually place that somewhere purposefully because I want to do something, cook or answer email or think about my life, it becomes very hard to do. So we're practicing being able to work with that. So that's something to contemplate. And so I have some suggestions for how you can make your practice sustainable, because anybody can start their practice and few can maintain their practice. And we all go through, I want to be extremely clear that everybody gets on the horse and falls off the horse and so on. So just please don't forget that. So I have some suggestions for making your practice strong, and I'll share them with you. And then if you have questions or comments about anything I said or about your practice in general, please do not hesitate. Okay? Is this okay? The first thing that is helpful in creating a sustainable practice is to set aside some very popular misconceptions that create enormous obstacles. And there are three. And the first misconception, the biggest misconception, the uber misconception, if anybody has practiced with me, you probably know what I'm going to say. What am I going to say? Anybody? That in order to meditate, you have to stop thinking. No. It makes me so upset when I hear that. And I mean, when I've heard so many times from people that say, there's no way I can meditate because I can't stop thinking. I can't clear my mind of thought. And of course you can't. And to meditate, you don't have to turn that off. So, that is going 1 billion miles an hour all day long, and often all night long. And then to think you're going to sit on your meditation cushion or chair and pull the emergency brake and just go, and have, it's not going to work that way. And if it did, it would be extremely disconcerting. So your meditation practice invites your thoughts, includes your thoughts, has a way of working with your thoughts, and no thought needs to be excluded. Your mind can race, you can be an asshole, you can be a brilliant genius, you can be a beacon of love and light in your thoughts. All of that is fabulous. Included. Can be a part of the practice. So our mind exists to make thoughts and to suddenly say, stop. would be like saying to your eyeballs, which are open right now, and you're looking out through them, say to them, don't see anything. If that was your practice, it would just be like, what? This is so frustrating. So the only thing you have to stop thinking is that you're supposed to stop thinking. All the other thoughts are welcome. So meditation is a way of relating with your thoughts and relaxing with your mind, which is vast, beyond belief, and sharpens more from the gesture of relaxation and ease and space than it does from the gesture of shut up, or you have to act this way, or you can only think nice thoughts, or you've thought that a million times, please don't ever think it again. That does not help. But creating a space of relaxation for all of those nutty children to play in is more beneficial for you. And it's also quite empowering. You take the seat of power when you look at your own thoughts that way. Does that make sense? Okay. The second misconception, I would say, becoming more and more popular, and it's not a bad thing, but it is not quite right, is that meditation is a form of self-help, and that it's a technology for becoming healthier or a better leader or a better partner or whatever it might be. And yes, it will help you do all those things, but that is one bazillionth of what it really is. So also, without knowing most of you, my guess is that when it comes to working on self-improvement, you're good. You got that. In the sense that you're always trying to get better at being who you are, doing what you do, the way you relate to others, the way you look, the way you feel. There's this constant, you could do that better, you could do that better, you could do that better. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you need to kick your own butt. Most of the time, however, it tips over into something unhelpful that is a kind of harsh self-doubt. And to dispel that doubt, most of us, and by most of us I mean myself, crank up the self-improvement at that point. Like, this is worse than I thought. I better read every book and watch myself like a hawk. Get a very tight rein on myself. And we should all work to be extraordinary in whatever way we want. And we should all work on our bad habits and develop discipline and high standards that we stick to and all of that. But if we put our meditation practice in that bucket, that self-improvement bucket, it doesn't know what to do in there. So a better way to look at your practice is as a way to take a break from self-improvement, and instead just to relax. So it's like jumping off the self-improvement treadmill for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes or however long you practice. You just go, I'm okay with you. You can be nutty, you can be brilliant, you can be boring, you can be all those things, and I'm just going to hang out with you. And that's what friendship is. So meditation is sometimes called the gesture of friendship that you make towards yourself. And just like with your friends, if you sat down with your friends and went, that is not a good color for you, and you've already told me that story 10 times, and that relationship is never going to work because you always screw it up at a certain point, that would not be a fun friendship to be in on either end. But that's what we do to ourselves. So your meditation practice is a chance to not do that. And it's quite delightful to just be with yourself. So that's the second misconception. And the third misconception is that the reason to meditate is to become more peaceful. And it will make you more peaceful, and we all want to be and can be more peaceful. But if you've practiced for X amount of time, a month, 6 months, 6 years, at some point you see, why is everything piercing my heart? Why is it that I cannot see someone suffering without feeling devastated myself? Why is it that the things that I used to be able to hold at arm's length are now touching me? Why do I feel more from my meditation practice? Because I wanted to feel less of some things. And the truth about your practice is that it does something better than make you more peaceful. It makes you more genuine. Because in this practice of relaxing with yourself, it's not just like you're babysitting yourself and just trying to make sure you don't get in trouble. It's like you're actually being with yourself in a softer way. You soften toward yourself by allowing your experience in your practice to be what it is. And I cannot overstate to you the repercussions of that softening. That softening has tremendous consequence. Because without trying, whether you want this to happen or not, when you soften toward yourself, you soften toward others. When you soften toward yourself and you soften toward others, your heart just continues to open. And when it's open, anything can come in, and does. That's not necessarily what I would call peaceful. But it kind of is. Because usually when we say, oh, I want to be more peaceful, it means I don't want to feel upsetting things. And I want to feel good things. Not too good, just good. And if something horrible happens to me, I don't really want to get that upset about it. I'd like to get upset for a couple minutes and then just recover. But I don't think that's what peaceful is. But because we are human beings, living in a vast and crazy, chaotic, and brilliant, and unspeakably profound situation, that is not an option. There is way too much to feel. Just from being a person, even if everything is good in your life, there's way too much to feel. This is way too big to mandate that way of being in the world, of just all zen, whatever people mean when they say that. Instead, a better route to peace is to ride the waves of extreme distress and great happiness and total boredom and make space for all of that. So usually when we say we want to be peaceful, it means we want to corral ourselves and leave certain things outside of that corral and create the safe space, sometimes in the Shambhala tradition called a cocoon. But this way of creating peace is the opposite. It's a constant embiggening, and I know that's not a word, of the space in which you hold your experience. So that is good. But it's not safe or easy. So that's one set of suggestions. Set aside the misconceptions when you look at your practice. And the most important, I would say, thing to do with your practice is to stop trying to do it right. Because the power of the practice arises from your personal connection to it. And when we start to practice, yes, there is a technique. It is very specific. Every detail is there for a reason. We shouldn't, monkey around with the technique. We should, employ the technique wholeheartedly. But at the same time, the technique is just there to support you and hold your experience so that you can then have a stable seat from which you can gaze out into your world or into your own heart. excuse me, and then we each, our inner meditation instructor starts to arise. And your practice is unlike anyone else's. And the way to begin discovering your practice, meaning your connection to the practice, because the practice is what it is, but within that, there's room for infinite variety, is to follow the technique, and as long as you follow it, have confidence that there is no way that you can do it wrong. And have equal confidence that there's no way that you can do it right. And that is quite charming. To be asked to do something that cannot be done incorrectly or correctly. It's un-American, but the poet Rumi said, I may be paraphrasing, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And this practice happens in that field. And that field is accessed through whatever hemisphere of your brain is the nonlinear one. Right brain. Thank you. So when we approach our practice with our left brain, okay, this is how what's going to happen. This is how I have to do it. This is what the person said. This is, all of that's good. But when you sit down to practice, all of that can be set aside. And this other part of your brain, which is the sensing, feeling, intuiting part, that's the part that really connects you to the magic of the practice. So if you do an art of any kind, you already know how to do this. So I'm going to try not to make this too long-winded. Your meditation practice is more than all the things I just said, self-help and so on, but how do you keep it sort of special and sacred? And because we're all rushing around our lives so fast, and you're like, oh, I better sit down on that cushion, and then you do, and you just feel antsy, and you're like, is this over yet? And this isn't doing anything. Okay, maybe I won't do it anymore. Oh, I need to do it. I should do it. I said I'd do it. I better do it. What else? What else you got? What other possibilities are there besides that approach to your practice, which I also am quite familiar with?